Hi everybody, it's Miss Mariah with the Allen County Public Library, and this is our art education program. I hope you guys are doing well. I know I haven't seen some of you guys in, it's been months and months, and I miss y'all, and hopefully as soon as we can get a vaccine, we can start having our programs again. Yeah. So fingers crossed, wear your mask, because that right now is the most important thing that we can do for each other. Is if everybody will wear their mask, it'll slow the spread and we'll all be healthy, and maybe, fingers crossed, early summer, and it might be different how it was before. You know, we were in the friendship room and we were all kind of close together. We might have to be in the Noble Allen room, which is where I'm at now. So if the lights go out, y'all know why. I've talked too long. You know, maybe we can meet in the Noble Allen room where we can spread out. So just remember, you know, I know the masks are irritating, but you know what? I've got mine. You know, most of y'all know I've got asthma. So if everybody wears their mask, it'll protect me. And of course, I work in the public, so I wear my mask to protect you. So let's all take care of each other so we can get back together and have a good time. So this month, I have chose to talk about folk art. Now, back in the summer, the adult summer reading program, which is Chelsea's program, she asked me to do a folk art painting. And some of you may have seen it. It was the 3 black crows sitting on a watermelon wedge. That is considered folk art. Some people also refer to it as primitive art. So if you hear folk, primitive, they kind of go hand in hand. So tonight we're not going to be, I haven't done a painting. If you want to know how to do a folk art painting, like have an example, just go back in our YouTube history and you'll see where Miss Chelsea's program on folk art, I'm doing it. I'm walking you through the painting of the crows sitting on the watermelon. So you guys are more than welcome, and I'm sure she'd enjoy the likes. But we're gonna talk tonight. I know, but I want you to get a better understanding of folk art. You know, growing up in Kentucky, we are surrounded, especially when you go to the mountain areas. Folk art, it stems from cultures. It can be anything from a painting, an embroidery, like an embroidered picture. You'll see them, and mainly around here we always seen like the basic with the house and like maybe the family's name or something like that. I'm gonna show you something in a minute, and it almost looks like a painting, but it's embroidered. It's beautiful. And it could be bowls, utensils, candles, children's toys. You know, there's some that are considered folk art, and I've got examples of them, and of course at the end of the video I'll post all of the pictures so you guys can look at them. But what I want you to do, I'm challenging you guys. You know, it's getting darker early, and everybody's all stressed out with the holidays. Are we gonna go? Aren't we? Do we? I would like for you to create your own folk art, and it can be a painting, you know, anything that symbolizes your culture, maybe even your family. So I'm going to give some examples, and like I said, I'm going to challenge you guys. I know. And if we were together, we would do something. I'd have, and I don't even know if it would be a painting. It might even be a soap carving of some type. Because folk art, it's so wide, and it could be anything really. So it's fun. So if you guys do decide to do a piece, send it to us. You can send it to me through Messenger or my email, which is Mariah at Allen County. Nope, I almost gave you the wrong one. Mariah at AllenCountyLibrary.com. Or you can send it to the Allen County Library's email, or any of the librarians you know, and we will post it. I'm super excited if you guys want to do that, and just, let us see how you look at your region and your culture and your family, how and where you've been raised. So I'm gonna get a little nerdy on you. It's okay. We'll make it. Okay, so folk art is artistic works. There goes the lights. There we go. Such as paintings, sculptures, baskets, utensils, produced typically in a cultural isolation, which means, like when I was talking about the mountain areas, those areas are pretty much isolated. You have to go so far to get something, or you just kind of isolate yourself, and it's because your people understand you and you understand your people. So we're not as isolated as some areas. You look at Alaska, even like eastern Kentucky, you get way up into the mountains. There's some people that simply do not come down from the mountain, but just a few times of the year. And thank goodness for things like online shopping and stuff. More things are available. So you got your cultural isolation. These are done by untrained, often anonymous artists or artisans. So these people are creating these items, and no one ever knows who created it. It might be passed down, and somebody's like, oh yeah, I think Uncle Jimmy, or maybe Uncle Jimmy's brother Timmy did that, and you're just like, I don't know who actually made this wonderful piece, but it's beautiful. They have varying degrees of skill. They are usually highly decorated and designed. Bright, bold colors, which y'all know I like. The perspective is usually very flat. There's not a lot of depth, and you'll see that in a photograph I'm going to show you here in a minute, and you'll understand it. And the forms are strong but simple. So when you look at a piece of folk art, you're like, oh, that's a cat. Oh, that's a cow. But it's very simple. But as we've learned in the past, simple doesn't always equal easy. Sometimes very simple designs are the hardest to do, because the slightest mistake and you see it. We all learned that the hard way, didn't we? So, they're decorative. They can be used every single day or reserved for ceremonies. They're handmade, usually include handmade elements, and a lot of recycled materials are usually used in folk art. They are made for use within communities. They are often sometimes used as a form of income or empowerment. They may be learned formally or informally. A lot of folk art is self-taught, as you'll see, because I do have an artist I want you guys to learn about, and because she has just completely inspired me. Let's see here. Can be expressive as far as like even some dance, music, song, foods can be considered folk art types. So but if you think folk music and like, even I was talking about, I just absolutely love our mountain areas, the Appalachian area, and some of the music that comes out of that. It's just the kind of music when you listen to it, you're like, you feel it. Even if it's not your type of music, you feel it, because there is that heart and soul put into it, because they're singing about what they know about. And that's another thing about folk art. It's what you know about. You're not trying to create this whole other world or this whole new adventure for yourself. It's your knowledge of what's around you. Let's see here. It may change over time because, let's face it, we all change over time. And it's inclusive of class, status, culture, community, ethnicity. Miss Mariah just messed that all up, didn't she? Gender and religion. Y'all know me. My diction is out the window. But so much for it to be so simple looking sometimes. There's a lot that goes into folk art. And again, I want you to think about the region you live in, because Kentucky, there's a lot of history, culture, just family traditions here. And I'm so scared that as time goes on, so much of that's going to be lost. And, you know, we're living in an age of technology, and nobody sits down and looks at a stick and goes, well, I'm going to pull my pocket knife out and I'm going to whittle something. You don't have that anymore. You have the artisans that do that. But I remember being a child right here in Scottsville, and up on the square, there was a bench. And any given day, you would go up there, and there would be 5 or 6 old men who were retired farmers, retired factory workers, all, you know, African American, white, it didn't matter. They were sitting there and they were whittling. And I don't know if any of those men ever accomplished anything more than a sharpened stick, but it was their community. They sat there and they talked about what was going on. They talked about what was important to them. And we really need that. Nobody got upset. If they did get upset, they showed up the next day and had their stick and had their pocket knife, and they started the day over. So I believe that is something that we really need right now in our world as a whole, but especially right here. I miss that. I love the, as far as Allen County has come, but I miss some of the old stuff too. Okay, so I'm just going to show you a few examples of folk art. This is called Moon, Marshes, and Moths. The mushrooms, mushies right here. Yeah, and then you got your moth and your moon. So this is, I kind of like it because I don't tell anybody, but I'm all into like the heavy 70s and 60s wallpaper, the big bold prints. I would love to have just one wall in my house one day with that crazy yellow, avocado green wallpaper. Just so when people walk in my house, they're just like, did that come with the house? Are you going to take that out? I'm like, no, I bought that on Amazon. So that kind of, and I was born in the mid-70s. And I remember a lot of things that looked like that. And it was usually woven tapestries and things of that nature. I know I'm showing my age. I'm looking pretty good. So we've got a primitive portrait of George Washington. And I really like this because, of course, it's not exactly, but when you look at it, you're like, oh yeah, that's George Washington. So this is a primitive portrait. This is an example of a primitive portrait. And like I said, these are all going to be at the end of the video with the artist name. So if you want to Google them and look at more stuff and maybe even try something your own. I did 2 primitive portraits of my 2 children that hang in my home, and I absolutely love them. Connor, it actually looks like him. Hagen, not so much, but it's still cute. So this is a cat in a hot tin tub. And I picked this out because this looks like my cat Pris, because she's a little fluffy girl. So it's very simple looking. There's not a lot of color, but if you were to pull this painting up, you would see the details and realize, okay, yeah, there's more in there than meets the eye. So a lot of us in our homes and in other people's homes, we know we're noticing the coming back of farmhouse, the country home style. Now this is just a mass production, but you will see this in a lot of wallpaper, plates, even pictures people are hanging in their homes now. Oh, there it went. I told you it was going to happen, right? So this is the farm fresh eggs. And like I said, you could go into any home store, whether it's TJ Maxx, Walmart, even our local decorating center, you'll see this type of decoration. So, you know, folk art's been around and primitive's been around a long time, and it's just come kind of commonplace, so you didn't probably recognize it. Now this is a vintage paper mache folk art figurine, and it is Mexican. Look at her. And this is paper mache. So this is wet paper and a paste. Isn't she lovely? My mom, her grandparents lived in Arizona, so she would go down there some as a child. And I've got a puppet. And her strings are, of course, gone now. But she's a style of folk art, and I want to get her redone because I would love to have her out in my home. She's very beautiful. Here's another thing that you might not have thought about it being folk art, but we've always used this term and we've talked about it, but the Russian nesting dolls. You know, you open this up, then another little doll in there, a little bit smaller. Then you open her up, and then there's a little doll in her, and you open it until you get this little bitty tiny doll that's way down in here. So so folk art isn't just here, it's all over the world. These are 19th century folk art dolls. You see the girl, she just has it, and it's probably some kind of burlap, maybe some kind of muslin cloth that her dress is made of. Aren't they lovely? And folk art, this right here, I don't see it on there, but there was probably some kind of mechanism that you would turn. It would look like the pig is dunking the piglet up and down in the tub. So these are considered folk art. This is an early primitive rocky horse. So see, I mean, these toys are absolutely amazing, and you can go to thrift stores, antique malls, and you will find these things. And sometimes if they're really well preserved, you're going to pay quite a bit of money for them. But then sometimes you'll get a good deal. Somebody just really doesn't, they don't know what they have. Or maybe it's a little rough. But you know what? A little rough is not bad, This is a cat chasing a mouse. And it's a wood cat, and it comes out, and you would push it, and this wheel would turn, and it looks like the mouse is running. So I enjoy that. It's called Cat Chasing, Mouse Chasing Cheese, carved wooden folk art toy. So isn't that neat? And there's also home items. Like I was telling you, this is a vintage folk art French country wood oak tea light candle holder. Try to say that 3 times really fast. So it's just a piece of oak. They've sanded it down. It's very smooth. And then they've carved out 2 holes for your tea light. My uncle, Tom, who just recently passed away, practiced psychology in the Appalachian region. And he brought me a rattler like a little rattle toy for my daughter when she was born. And it was made out of the ash wood. And it was a solid piece. I don't know how they did it. I have no idea. And it's shaped very similar to this, more of a curve. And it rattled. And I've got it put up because it's so precious. I don't ever want anything to happen to it. I would love to to see my grandchildren playing with that. And it was hand carved by an artisan. And I need to remember, I've got the paperwork. It actually came with paperwork talking about what region it came from, but it's Ashwood. It's totally beautiful. Here is a bowl, a 4-section bowl. A lot of you know people, and maybe even in your own home, you have the dough bowl. And it's just a rough, carved out wooden bowl that they would knead bread dough in. So, and a lot of them are reproductions, and you can get them, like I said, at TJ Maxx or Home Goods. But every once in a while, you'll run across somebody that has a real one, and they're really expensive because a lot of them didn't survive. They were used until they were worn out. So yes. When I was talking about the tapestries or the embroidering earlier, there was a famous female folk artist named Grandma Moses. And I've always heard that term. Well, she lived to be over 100 years old, and she would do these tapestries. And like I said, it almost looks like a painting, but it's embroidered. That's all thread and needlework. And she, of course, I don't know. I read on her just slightly, but she made a name for herself with this. Grandma Moses, because she became successful in her art career well into her 70s. So she would do this, but unfortunately in her 70s, she was stricken with arthritis and had to stop. Because even, how your hands will get really cold and it's hard to move. Imagine that being your daily life, and there's no way you can do needlework having your hands like that. She did this her whole life, and then she had to abandon it. But yes, Grandma Moses, who is actually Anna Mary Robertson Moses. She was born in 1860 and died in 1961. So, yeah, definitely look her up. So, and I'm just going to show you this. And some folk artists, they paint everywhere. There is a town in Japan, Chelsea was showing me, the houses in that town are painted like this on the outside. So it's very colorful, and it's their folk art. So leading from that, I want to talk just a minute about Maud Lewis. And I would really encourage you, if folk art is something that you're interested in, look up Maud Lewis. She was a Canadian folk artist. She was a little tiny woman. In fact, some of the stuff that I've read, she was actually buried in a child's coffin. She was so little. And when she was a young teenager, they found out she had arthritis. So by the time she died, her hands she could almost not even use them, but she could still hold a paintbrush. So she was very poor. She lived in a 1-room cabin, just one room. You guys need to look this up. Nova Scotia Art Museum, they've got it. They went and bought her house, moved it. It sits inside of the museum, and it is so beautiful. She has covered all the walls, the window panes, the door, the shutters on this home with her paintings. She was very, very poor, so she didn't have a camera to take pictures. So most of her stuff was from memory or what she could see outside, because by the time she started getting older, even walking around was hard for Maud. And lived a very hard life with a hard spouse and hard family. But everyone that said that they got to meet her, she was always smiling, very, very chipper, very pleasant, and not a single one of her paintings ever sold for more than $10. Now, after she died, they skyrocketed, and I think, what a different life. Maybe she could have got the medication she needed. She, living in that little tiny house, she actually died of pneumonia at 60, I'm wanting to say 60, yeah, 67, because of paint fumes and where they burned wood for heat, the smoke from, and she developed lung conditions, and she actually died of pneumonia. Very interesting story. There's also a movie that just came out a couple of years ago called Mache. So look that up. If you're interested in folk art, you really should look her up. Now, she would paint on anything. This was her dustpan that was in her home. So she painted these fuzzy little black cats and these flowers. She just wanted to paint. And she actually became the breadwinner in her family. Her husband was a fish peddler, and he realized she could sell her art, so he just kind of, I don't want to say encouraged, because it was more for his benefit than hers. But yeah, check her out. Her story's amazing. She's amazing. And right here's a shutter from her little cabin. And it's just, it looks very simple, very raw, and very flat. Remember, I was talking about it's very flat, yes. But just need to check her out, because then you will get a better understanding of why I'm like, just check her out. She was such an amazing artist and woman, and you know, just like y'all know how I feel about Van Gogh. I mean, he didn't even sell a painting until his death. You know, he gave them away. He, you know, tried to sell them. If somebody would buy it, he would have sold it. And when he died, his brother just brought out all his paintings and propped them up next to his coffin along the walls. And as people were looking at his body, they were buying his paintings. So if you really enjoy a piece of art, you really enjoy an artist, buy their paintings. And I know some artists want a whole lot because that's how they make their living. But even a local artist, like the people that have bought my paintings, I am so appreciative, because I do it because I want to get better. I want to keep working at it. And there's something in me that tells me you need to do these paintings. And I said, you know, it works at me. It'll work at me until I do this painting. But, you know, last Christmas, my paintings paid for my children's Christmas. So if there is an artist out there that you really love, go buy a piece. Don't wait until they're dead and they will never benefit from, you know, seeing their art. Just knowing my art is out there in the world, and it's out there and people are enjoying it. That makes us feel good. So yes, Maud Lewis. Check her out. Check out folk art. If you go somewhere, if you travel, see if they have a folk art studio. Just if there's a fair, if there's a festival, go and pick up a little piece of their culture, a little bit of their life and their history, and bring it home and set it on your mantle or put it on your bookcase and go, you know, I went somewhere and I saw this piece and it reminded me of the people that lived there, and it'll make their life richer and it'll make your life richer. And I promise you won't regret the $10, $15, $20 you spend on that piece of work. And you'll always have that story. And especially if you're with your kids, you and your kids pick something out together. And that can be something your grandkids is like, yeah, Mom told me they went on this trip. So folk art, very, very important. So I'm just going to keep needling it in until you guys listen to me. All right, so that was folk art. I don't know how next month's going to look, so if you guys have a suggestion, just holler at me. I might do something pertaining to the holidays. I don't know. who knows? I might just wake up next week and be like, oh yeah, that's what we're gonna do. So, but like I said, if you have any suggestions, just holler at me. If you decide to do a folk art, like you can do soap carvings, wood carvings, tapestry. I mean, anything, as long as it represents you and your culture and your area, your region, your family, it's folk art. So just trust me. So I hope you guys are safe and being safe so that we can meet again soon. So until next month, this is Miss Mariah at the Allen County Public Library, and this has been Art Education, and I will see you guys later. Be safe and be kind. Bye.